need a dramatic wake-up call to realize something has shifted. Sometimes the change shows up quietly. You notice you're not as reactive anymore. You don't feel pulled into every opinion, and you don't need to explain yourself as much. And at first, you might not even trust it. You wonder if you're checking out, if you're losing your edge, if you should care more than you do. But then you realize something important. You're not disconnected, you're centered. And that changes everything. Welcome back to the Motivated Savages podcast, where we live bold, lead fearless, and ignite our path forward. I'm Jody Savage, and today we're talking about something subtle, powerful, and very real. We're talking about what happens when you stop letting the outside world dictate your inner world. Not just the news or social media, not just loud opinions, all of it. Because whether you realize it or not, we're all curating something every single day. And it's not just our feeds. It's our energy, our attention, our focus, our lives. I started noticing this in a really simple way. I spend a decent amount of time on social media. And one day it hit me how different my feed looks compared to other people I know. Mine is full of farm life and sustainable living, crafts, writers encouraging other writers, people building things slowly and intentionally, travelers, photographers, quiet beauty, curiosity. Not because I block the rest of the world out completely, but because I don't engage with what drains me. And that's when it clicked. The feed isn't random, it's responsive. What you linger on shows up more. What you react to multiplies. What you ignore fades away. And that doesn't just apply to social media. It applies to life. I finally realized I'm not living in a bubble. I'm living in alignment. And that alignment shows me back to myself constantly. What you give your attention to grows. What you feed energy to gains momentum. What you keep responding to becomes your environment. That's not philosophy. That's observable reality. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This becomes even clearer when I think about my own family. My brothers and I grew up in the same house. We had the same parents and went through the same divorce. We had the same core experiences. Yet each of us walked away with completely different internal worlds. Not because one of us was right or wrong, but because each of us interpreted, processed, and focused on different things. Same environment, different filters. That's where it really lands for me. The world you experience isn't just shaped by what happens to you. It's shaped by what you give meaning to. And that's where self-trust begins to quietly form. Not as a declaration, not as confidence you announce, but as the ability to notice what resonates and what doesn't, without forcing yourself to justify it. There's something that begins to happen when you stop forcing yourself and stay engaged with everything. You start noticing what sticks and what quietly falls away. Some conversations feel grounding. Others feel noisy, even when nothing is technically wrong. Some ideas settle in and stay with you. Others pass through and don't need your attention. You don't analyze it. You don't make a rule about it. You just respond differently. You pause before reacting. You let things breathe. You don't rush to fill every silence or correct every narrative. And slowly, almost without trying, your life becomes simpler. Not smaller, cleaner. You stop questioning every instinct. You stop explaining choices that already feel right. You stop staying in places that require you to override yourself. There's a quiet confidence that builds there. Not the kind that announces itself, the kind that moves through your days without friction. You're not guessing as much anymore. You're not checking the room before you check in with yourself. You're just moving in a way that feels aligned. And the interesting part, nothing dramatic had to happen for that shift to occur. You didn't need a breakthrough moment. You didn't need permission. You didn't need certainty. You simply stopped ignoring what you already knew. That's when your energy starts to feel steadier. That's when your focus sharpens. And that's when your choices begin to reflect who you actually are. Not because you tried to change, but because you trusted what was already there. And here's where things get practical. Every time you engage with something, you're telling your nervous system, this matters. Every time you scroll past something without reacting, you're saying, this doesn't need me. Every time you choose calm over commentary, you reinforce a different way of being. And over time, that shapes your world. This is why two people can look at the same platform, the same news cycle, the same opportunities, and walk away with completely different experiences. It's not about ignorance, it's about selection. It's about coherence between who you are and what you consume. And once that coherence is there, life feels less like a fight. Things still happen, challenges still arise, but you're not constantly bracing. You're responding instead of reacting, choosing instead of defending, observing instead of absorbing. That's when momentum starts to feel natural instead of forced. And this is where gratitude quietly deepens. Not the repetitive kind or the checklist kind, but the kind that recognizes how far you've come and how you respond to life. Gratitude for clarity. Gratitude for boundaries that don't require explanation. Gratitude for the ability to walk away without guilt. Gratitude for peace that doesn't need to be justified. That kind of gratitude sharpens awareness. It trains you to notice what's working while it's happening. And when you notice it, you reinforce it. That's how alignment sustains itself. So before we wrap this up, I want you to take a breath with me. Think about what's showing up in your world right now. What keeps catching your attention? What feels nourishing instead of draining? What conversations leave you feeling clearer instead of heavier? Now, ask yourself one simple question. Am I feeding what I want more of? Because whatever you're consistently engaging with is shaping your experience, whether you mean for it to or not. This week, Your challenge is simple and powerful. Pay attention to what you respond to, not just online, in conversations, in your thoughts, in your habits. Notice where your energy goes easily, and notice where it feels forced. And for 1 week, choose alignment over reaction. See how your inner world responds, and see how your outer world adjusts. Then imagine what that looks like over a month, over a year. That's how lives change, quietly, intentionally, from the inside out. I'm Jody Savage, and this is the Motivated Savages podcast. Live bold, ignite your path. That's the Savage way. If this message resonated, share it with someone who's ready to be more intentional about what they let shape their world. And if you want to carry this message with you, check out our merch line at motivatedsavages.com. We've designed gear to remind you to live bold every day. Together, we're building the Savage community, a movement of people choosing purpose, growth, and bold living.